All right, on your next empty page, okay, so you're gonna go to your next empty page. If you'll write equivalent fractions. Okay, equivalent fractions on the top. Okay, equivalent fractions. Okay, in the middle of that page, if you'll put 8/20ths, okay, and put a box around it, 8/20ths. Okay, 8/20ths. Okay, so equivalent just means equal, basically. Okay, equivalent just means equal. And so if we want an equivalent fraction for 8/20ths, all we do is multiply both the top and bottom by the same number, or divide the top and bottom, that's for the 7th and 8th grade, by the same number. So again, there's only a couple of things we could divide the top and bottom both by, but there's tons of things, you could do anything to multiply the top and bottom by. So what would be something that would be an equivalent fraction for 8/20ths? Again, as long as you multiply the top and bottom by the same thing, or divide the top and bottom by the same thing, that will be an equivalent fraction. So Annika, what will be an equivalent fraction for 8/20ths? So again, you can pick anything you want to. So for instance, let's say I'm gonna do 2. So I'm gonna multiply them both by 2. So I multiply this by 2, I'm gonna get 16. I'm gonna multiply this by 2, I'm gonna get 40. So 16/40ths would be an equivalent fraction for 8/20ths because I multiplied both the top and the bottom by 2. Okay? I can also divide the top and bottom by the same thing. Again, or I can multiply the top and bottom by the same thing. So there's an infinite number of equivalent fractions. So Macy, what would be another equivalent fraction for 8/20ths?
4/10.
4/10. Okay? She divided the top and bottom both by 2. So 4/10 would be an equivalent fraction. Okay, what would be another equivalent fraction for 8/20ths? Okay, there's also something else I could divide by. She divided the top and bottom both by 2. There's something else I could divide by, and then there's an infinite number of things I could multiply by. Graham, give me something else that's equivalent to 8/20ths. 24/60ths. Yes. Okay, he multiplied the top and bottom both by 3. Okay, that would be another equivalent fraction. Okay, 4 is another thing we could divide by. Okay, we divided by 2. You can also divide 8 and 20 by 4. So that would be another way to get another equivalent fraction. Lucas? Divide them both by 4.
4 fifths. Wait.
Divide the top by 4, what do you get?
2.
And divide the bottom by 4, what do you get?
5.
2/5. Okay? Again, we could go on and on and on and on. Okay? So anytime you multiply the top and bottom or divide the top and bottom by the same number, you're going to get an equivalent fraction. Okay? All right, what I'm going to write next, if you'll write it underneath here, but I'm going to take this off so I've got some more space. Okay, I want you to write 16/40ths. 16/40ths. Okay, what would be the biggest number that goes into both 16 and into 40? So again, what is the greatest factor they have in common? The biggest factor they have in common. Sophie?
8.
8. Okay, so we're going to divide the top and bottom both by 8. Okay, so what do we get when we divide 16/40ths? What do we get if we divide that by 8? Annika?
2/5.
2/5. Okay, now this is an equivalent fraction for 16/40ths, but because we got it down as far as it would go, we can't go down any further than 2/5. Okay, this is called, and sometimes in math things have more than one name. This has 2 things. You could call this the simplest form. Okay, it's the simplest form of the fraction. We got it down as far as it would go. Or sometimes it's called lowest terms. Okay, so we're just going to write both of them because you'll see them written both ways in math. Sometimes it'll say, what is the fraction in simplest form? Or it could say, what is the fraction in lowest terms? Same thing. That means find the biggest thing that goes into both and divide by that. So yes, it's an equivalent fraction, but it's also in its simplest form or its smallest form, okay? We're gonna go to your whiteboard for a minute. We're gonna come back to your composition book one more time in a few minutes, but let's go to your whiteboard for a few minutes. Okay, so write 9/12 on your whiteboard. 9/12. Okay, we want to get that in simplest form. And so again, we need to think about what's the biggest thing that goes into both 9 and 12 evenly. What is the biggest factor that they have in common? Factor?
It's Thaxton. What did they?
Do what?
It's Thaxton.
I know that. Thaxton, sorry.
3.
It is 3. And so we're going to divide them both by 3. And so what would we get?
3/4.
3/4. Okay, 3/4 is that fraction in lowest terms. Okay, all we did was find the biggest thing that goes into both. 3, divide 9 by 3, you get 3. Divide 12 by 3, we're going to get 4. Okay, what about 24? 40ths. 24 40ths. What do you think will be the biggest number that goes into both 24 and 40? And they share several things. Okay, there's several things that go into both of these numbers. But what would be the biggest? Zion?
4.
Bigger. 4 does go into both, but there's something bigger. BJ? 8. Okay, BJ, how many times, if we divide this by 8, what do we get? 3, and then 5, exactly. If we divide this by 8, we get 3. If we divide this by 8, we get 5. So 3/5 would be our biggest. Now, let me show you something though that you could do. So let's say that you were, doing your homework and you were thinking to yourself, okay, 4 is the biggest thing that goes into both. Okay, so then I would divide. So if I divide that by 4, I get 6. And I divide that by 4, I get 10. Okay, but then I would realize, hey, wait a minute. It's not in lowest terms yet, right? Because that's not in lowest terms. I can still go down again. So then I would think, what's the biggest thing that goes into 6 and 10? 2. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and I still get the correct answer, okay? So even if you can't think of what's the biggest thing that goes into both, you can get there eventually, okay? So if you notice it's not in simplest form, just keep going, and you'll get to 3/5, okay? And we'll look at another one like that in a second. Let's look at 28/35. 28/35. So what would be the biggest factor that those two numbers have in common? And 35 only has a few things that go into it anyway. So what would be the biggest thing that goes into both? Lucas?
7.
7. So Lucas, if I divide the top by 7 and the bottom by 7, what's going to be this fraction in simplest form? 4/5. Okay, 4/5. Divide by 7, divide by 7, 4/5. Okay, and I'll bring you your ticket in just a second. Okay, what about this one? 18/63. Okay, and again, you may not know the biggest thing that goes into both, but you know something that goes into both, hopefully. And so, if you do, then you can keep going from there. So what's something that would go into both, Haley?
9.
9. Okay, so let's divide the top and bottom by 9. And so if we divide 18 by 9, Haley, what do we get?
2.
And if we divide 63 by 9, we get 7. 2/7. Okay, 2/7 would be 18/63 in simplest form, or lowest terms. Okay, let's do one more and then we're gonna look at something else. Okay, this is a good one. What about 36/72? 36/72. So again, you might not know the biggest thing that goes into both, but you know something you can start with. Laird?
It'd be 6. It'd be 6 on top.
So you're saying divide by 6?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you divide 36 by 6, what do you get?
You get 36 minus 66.
Okay, and then what do you get if you do 72 divided by 6?
You get 11. Wait,
Close.
12.
Got it. Okay, you also might have thought 9, okay? That would work too, but look what happened. We're not in simplest form yet, so we gotta go again. And so we need to keep going. And so what can go into both 6 and 12, BJ? 6. So if we divide the top by 6, what do we get?
1,
And the bottom?
2.
Exactly. So actually, the biggest thing that goes into both numbers is 36, because 36 goes into 72, but you didn't need to know that, because you can just keep going and you get the answer eventually. Okay, so if it's not in simplest form, just keep going. All right, let's go back to your composition book one more time. We're gonna put one more example in there. Okay, so let's put one more example.
Are we gonna come back to our whiteboard?
Yes. Okay, so I want you to put 7/8 equals. 7/8 equals. So we're gonna have two equivalent fractions, but there's gonna be one piece missing, and you're gonna figure out the missing piece, okay? So we're gonna have 7/8 equals 21 over blank. Okay? So remember, when you find equivalent fractions, the same thing has to happen on the top as on the bottom. So you think, what happens to go from here to here? Okay, so you have to know that. What happens to go from here to here? And we obviously know it's multiplication because it's getting bigger. And whatever that is that happened here, that also has to happen here. And that's going to give us our missing part. So Macy, what happens from 7 to 21?
You're dividing by 7. Or
You're multiplying by
multiplying.
7 times what gives me 21?
3.
3. So you're multiplying by 3, which means I have to multiply by 3 here. So what's my missing part?
24.
24 is my missing part. Okay? So all you have to do to find the missing part is see what happened on the other part, and the same thing has to happen. So if I had the bottom filled in, then I would say what happened from there to there, and then you would find the missing piece. So the same thing has to happen on the top as on the bottom. So let's try a couple of these. Okay, so what if we have 20 30ths equals 15 on the bottom, but we're missing the top. Okay, so first of all, we're going from 30 down to 15. So first of all, we know it's division. Something's happening here that's division. Whatever that is, that's got to happen here too, and that gives us the missing part. BJ.
Okay, so if you divide 30 by 2, you get 15. So you'd have to get 20 divided by 2. Which is
Exactly. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and so we would get what?
10.
10. Exactly. Okay, so let's go to your whiteboard and try some of these. Okay, so whatever happens on the same thing has to happen on both things. So let's try a couple of these. Let's see. Let's do 20 over 45 equals 4 over blank. Okay, so something happens to go from 20 down to 4. Whatever that is, it's got to happen on the bottom too. Graham.
9.
Divide by 5, divide by 5. So this must be a 9, exactly. And I'll bring your ticket in a second. Okay, what about this one? What about 40, 56, and we're gonna have a 7 down here. Okay, so something happens to go from 56 down to 7, and the same thing needs to happen on the top. Lucas?
So you divided by 8.
56 divided by 8 gives me 7, so I have to do the same on the top.
And then 40 divided by 8 would be 5.
Got it. So it's divide by 8 on bottom, we've got to divide by 8 on top. So the missing piece would be a 5. Okay, let's try another one. Alright, what about, let's see, let's do 8/9 equals 72 over blank. Okay, so again, we know it's multiplication 'cause it's getting bigger, so it's going from 8 up to 72. We gotta do the same thing on the bottom. BJ.
You times 8 times 9, which is 72, so you times 9 times 9 is 81.
Got it. Times 9 on top, times 9 on bottom, so we're missing an 81. Okay, we're gonna do some more of these, but I have it on this little thing right here. Okay, so we're doing the exact same thing. We're just, you've got two equivalent fractions and we are missing, one of the pieces.
Are we gonna have homework tonight?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so, okay. Alright, so again, here, see what happens from 7 to 49? And the same thing needs to happen on the bottom. So it would be our missing piece of these two equivalent fractions. Monica?
49, 63.
63, yeah, 63 is what is missing, so it's times 7 times 7, exactly. Okay, what about this one? Okay, so you've gotta go from 12 up to 144. So think about 12 times what gives you 144, and the same thing needs to happen on the top. Jameson?
Multiply by 12, so it'd be 60, 144.
Got it. Times 12, 12 times 12 is 144, so 12 times 12, so the top's gonna be times 12, so we're missing a 60. Okay, what about this one? So we're dividing, because we're going from 36 down to 12. We're going from 36 down to 12. So 36 divided by something gives you 12. And that same thing needs to happen on the bottom. Annika,
13.
you're close. Okay, so think what happens to you from 36 down to 12. That's the first thing you need. So what happens?
3.
36 divided by 3. So then you've got to do 45 divided by 3. If you don't know, short division will tell you really fast. 15. Okay, divide by 3, divide by 3. So 15, because 15 and 15 is 30, and then another 15 is 45. Okay, so this one we're going from 5 up to 30, so we know we're multiplying. And so whatever that is, the same thing needs to happen on the bottom. Graham?
You'll multiply by 6, so it'll be 48.
Yes, we multiply by 6, so the missing piece is 48. Okay, this one you're dividing. Okay, going from 121 down to 11. 121 down to 11. 121 divided by what would give me 11? Graham?
It will be divided by 11.
Right,
so
11 times 11 is 121,
it'll
yes.
be 8, 11.
Right, divide by 11, so the top has to be divided by 11, which means we're missing an 8. Okay, let's try another one. This is why it's important to know your math facts pretty well, because the faster you know them, the easier math is for you. All right, so this is gonna be multiplication, because we're getting bigger from 4 to 20. Okay, and then the same thing needs to happen on the bottom, later.
49. I mean, 45.
Okay. She didn't answer. Yes, it's times 5 times 5, so it is 45. Okay, this one we're going down from 63 down to 7. So we know we're dividing. Oops, sorry. And then the same thing is happening on the top. Again, we know we're dividing because it's getting smaller. So, Macy.
3 over 7.
Divide by 9, divide by 9, it's gotta be 3. Okay, again, we're dividing because we're going 18 down to 2. Okay, 18 down to 2. So think about what that would be. And then the same thing needs to happen on the bottom. Jameson?
2 minutes.
Yes, divide by 9, divide by 9. So the answer is 9. Okay, what about this one? again, we're getting smaller, so we know we're dividing. 72 down to 9. Okay, so whatever that is, the same thing needs to happen on the top. 72 down to 9. BJ.
So you divide by 8.
Uh-huh.
So 24 divided by 8 is 3.
Got it. Okay, again, we're dividing because we're going from 30 down to 6. Okay, we're going from 30 down to 6, so it's got to be division. And then that same thing needs to happen on the bottom. Annika.
6 sevens.
What do you do on the top?
Oh, it's 55. You do it times 5.
But you're going down, so it's not times 5.
Right,
You're
it'd be divided by.
divided by 5, so this has to be divided by 5.
6 11s.
11 would be what is missing, yes.
I did 35, not 55.
Okay, we talked about 144 a little while ago. So 144 down to 12. Okay, 144 down to 12, and then the same thing needs to happen on the top. Lucas?
So we divide 144 by 12 and we get 12, so 60 divided by 12 would be 4? Like, no,
Close.
5.
5, yes. So it's divide by 12, divide by 12, so the top has to be at 5. Okay, now this one, to go from 15 down to 1, you know you have to divide by 15. If you're not sure how many 15s there are in 90, think about that 2 15s make 30, and 3 30s make a 90. Okay, 2 15s make 30, and 3 30s make a 90. So divide by 15, divide by 15. So how many 15s would there be in 90, Hannah?
Or no.
Not third, because you're thinking of 30s. But if it's 3 30s, then how many 15s is that? If there's 2 15s in every 30. Sophie? 6. 6, yes, 6 is missing. So it's divided by 15, divided by 15, so 6 is missing. Okay, we know we're dividing, because we're going down, 12 down to 3. And then we need to do the same thing on the bottom. So again, we know we're dividing, because it's going from 12 down to 3. Graham?
3 7.
Divide by 4, divide by 4 is 7. Okay, we know we're going up, because 10 up to 20 would be multiplication. And so, Annika, what do we get on the missing piece?
20, 30.
Times 2 times 2, yes, it is 30. And then we know we are multiplying because we are going from 7 up to 49. Okay, we're going from 7 up to 49. And so, what would we get? Graham?
49 84.
It's times 7 times 7, so we'd be missing 84. Okay, so tomorrow, this is one of those weird days where you do not have City Hall before I see you again. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and give you your homework with a few minutes left and let you have a few minutes to work, since you don't have a study hall before I see you again. Okay, so that way you don't have to do very much tonight. So first of all, just grab a pencil, and we're gonna do one in each section together. And then you're gonna have about 10 minutes to work, okay, so that you're not left with a lot of homework, because you don't have, every other day pretty much, you have City Hall before I see you again.
Huh?
Okay, so put your name on this, okay, put your name on this.
I got 2.
It's good like to be, yeah. It goes like on the whole point.
Alright, again, put your name on this, and we're gonna do one in each section together, and then I'm gonna let you have a few minutes to work. And I'll be coming around if you have questions. Okay, and again, this is the same hall before I see you. Okay, so let's look at the first section. So this is multiple choice, basically. So number 1 says 1/3. Okay, 1/3, and then there are 5 choices. Only one of those fractions is equivalent to 1/3. So see which fraction has been multiplied by the same thing on the top and bottom. For instance, you know 5/12 can't be it because if you multiply 1 by 5, then you have to multiply the bottom by 5, and that's not 12. So that can't be it. So then you move to the next one. So the next one says the top's times 3, and so the bottom's gotta be times 3. So does 3 6 work?
Yes. No.
That would be 3 9.
No.
Okay, so we go to the next one. If we multiply the top by 4, then we have to multiply the bottom by 4, which would be 12. So does that one work?
No.
No. Let's go to the next one. Multiply the top by 5, so the bottom has to be multiplied by 5. Does that one work?
Yes.
Yes. So
Yes.
that is your choice. So you can either just circle it, circle D, or you can put D in the blank. Okay, so on each one of those, only one will work. Okay, only one will work.
Which one was it?
We were on number 1. We did 5/15. Okay, let's go to the next section. The next section, you're just writing them in simplest form. So look at the first one in the next section. It says 10/25. So what would be the biggest number that goes into both 10 and into 25? What would be the biggest number that goes into both? Jameson? 5. So we're going to divide 10 and 25 both by 5. So what would we get for 10/25 in simplest form? Annika?
2/5.
2/5. Okay, and then the section at the bottom, you're gonna do what we just did. So look at the first one. It goes from 4 down to 2, so we know it's division. So what is it? And then that same thing needs to happen on the top. Where? What was your question? We're doing the first one on each section. We did that one, we did that one, and now we're doing that one. We divided both of them by 5. Both of them by 5, All right, so number 11. So we're going from 4 down to 2, so we know it's division. And, or it's 11 on the last section. They're not numbered. Like the first ones are 1 through 6, the next ones are 6, so they're not, because I took them from 3 different things. Graham? Yeah, it's gotta be 1, because we divide by 2 on bottom, we've gotta divide by 2 on top, so we're just gonna get a 1. Okay, so again, I'm gonna give you a few minutes to work because you don't have study hall again before I see you tomorrow morning.
Wait, which one was that? The one that we just did?
The first one, we did the first one on each section. So we did the first one in the first section, the first one in the next section, and the first one in the last section.